button there the first time. Let me get my other iPad up where I am going to be monitoring the stream. Feel free to let me know who's in the chat, who's here in the stream. Hopefully I can get this all set up right. Well, it's not doing, let me change anything in the chat there for some reason. But let me know that you can hear me. Let me know what you're working on today. Where are you coming to us from? And what your connection is with the vintage petrol lighter or cigarette lighter hobby. Okay, so I got that set to live chat there. Not sure why it's not letting me set the chat here from the camera that I'm doing the stream on. So anyway, everybody, if there's an issue, let me know. Got our newly manufactured copy of the vintage Penguin Cygnus aluminum block roller petrol lighter. But of course, this is not an aluminum block lighter, nor is it vintage. It was apparently made in Hong Kong and sold out of China or marketed out of China. I don't know how you would say that. We fueled this up a full 3 weeks ago, which some of you know if you've used a vintage Penguin Cygnus lighter. There's some of those depending on what kind of fuel cap seal it has. Some of those only last you 2 or 3 days worth of fuel completely filled up. Now I do think that this lighter holds quite a bit more because it's not your typical straight bore. I put all my Cygnus light. No, I didn't put them all up. Still got a couple of them out here. Well, I've even got one that doesn't have a fuel screw, so you can see what I'm talking about. Typically, aluminum block lighters are just drilled straight through, so there's no room in the rest of, not like any nooks and crannies. Where this particular lighter, which I'm not going to take the bottom of it off, but if you've seen that video, you can loosen this screw right here, the cap will come off, and then you could see that it's not just a straight bore, it's the entire inside of the body. Completely different construction of a lighter than what we have with the aluminum blocks. And I'd say the Penguin Cygnus are probably the most well-known aluminum block lighters. The heyday of aluminum block lighters were a little bit before the Penguin Cygnus, I think, in the garage or homemade or shop type that most people think of. Kind of like where you've got this idea that there were all these lighters built in trenches or made in trenches during wars. There really were. I don't know how many lighters were made in trenches during wars, but there were plenty of aluminum block lighters that were manufactured all over the world in the years directly following World War II, simply because there was a surplus of that metal. Plenty of it to be used. I think I've got my lights set up a little bit better today to where you can see the finish on this and the color a little bit better. I did put it in my pocket, carry outside with me to smoke a couple of times this weekend. And there was even once where I had this lighter in my pocket and another lighter in my hand. And just as I was about to let that other lighter go in the pocket, I realized that it was in the same pocket as this one, that I did not want it sharing other metal objects with. So I quickly pulled that out. I didn't actually drop it. I just kind of had touched it to the corner. So hopefully there was no damage. I'm really going to try not to carry this alongside anything that would easily damage it. So we'll see. Still good though, still firing right up. Also fueled up our Rogers Rocket Flame Petrol jet pipe lighter a while ago. Hear that little vapor lock pop there on that first strike. And it's so finicky, you got to get it fueled just to the right level before you can get that jet flame. So with this one, it's like you're just going to have to live with just a tiny bit of vapor lock to get it fueled perfectly. Otherwise, you can go watch that video whenever it gets published, and we've made a similar video before. But when you fuel this up, if you don't get it to a certain level, then it just won't achieve. Here we got trouble even getting it sparking up, and maybe that's just vapor lock, even though we had the fuel or the lid open. You would really like that to ignite a little bit more efficiently than that. It's not a very good advertisement for this lighter here. There you go. So definitely a little bit of vapor lock, otherwise that wouldn't still be occurring after that lid's been open so long. But anyway, there it is, the Rogers Rocket Flame, that for whatever reason, and this is not the only one I've ever seen like this. I've had others that were actually marked Rogers Rocket Flame, and I think I had one that actually had the graphic of a rocket on it. But this one and some of the others that I've seen online just marked Rogers, Japan. Hello, Major Wind. Glad to have you with us today. Says, we just found your channel and we love it. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Let me know if you have any questions, or if there's a particular video you would like for me to put on the list of projects to get made. Hello, O. Art Henningsen. Glad to have you with us today, sir. I am doing well. Just fiddling around with a couple lighters. Maybe fuel up a couple of butane lighters. But really still enamored with this new Cygnus lighter, or I should say Zoro lighter. I don't think it's inappropriate to call it a Zoro Cygnus. Well, cool. So how did you sell those roller gases? There's definitely a market for them. I'm assuming all the roller gases that I've come across, which haven't been a ton, came in lots with other Petrol lighters that I bought. But did you just sell them untested? I'm assuming that the Dunhills, in my experience, they leak just as bad as any other old butane lighter. But yeah, whether they are repaired or whether they're just being sold as needing repair, there's definitely a market for them. And there's, I've got a kit around here to repair, I forget what it is, 5 or 10 of them that I bought several years ago when I was still over in the place in Mesta Park. And I just haven't ever gotten to it. I've gotten around to it. I'm so busy with Petrol lighters. It would probably serve me to become a little bit more familiar with butane lighters because I use them. I use them for heating up dab torches, which is my main method of delivery these days for medical marijuana products. So, but you can't use a soft flame lighter, even a jet flame from a Petrol lighter like this Rogers Rocket Flame. And I told you this thing was finicky in the way that you get it fueled. You got to get it fueled to a certain level or it won't actuate the jet flame. And yet here we are, it takes a dozen times to get it to strike because it's vapor locked. Yeah, I've had a couple of them that were pretty nice, and that's why I bought that repair kit. And I can't remember whether I've actually ever looked into it past just, you know, the basic instructions or not, whether I've ever started that project, but I never made it far enough with any of them that at a certain point, I think I've had two of them that I was going to try to rebuild, and both times I ended up selling them as parts lighters with other groups just because I got tired of having them around. So do you have you sold other lighters? You said you just found the channel because of it, or do you have an interest in the hobby, or was it just so far as getting rid of those lighters made your win? I prefer Petrol lighters. And I don't want to open that one up. But, you know, wick lighters. Very elementary. I don't want to open that one up either because it's, I just fueled it. That's got a butane insert in it. There we go. A little bit. Not the most handy lighter to pull out and use, but wick lighters, and the vast majority of them are going to be flint sparked, which your Dunhill roll gas is flint sparked too, so that's all cool. But the butane part of it, where we open up and this one is a little bit difficult as you can see, but we open up our fuel cap, and you'll see underneath there it's just cotton, some other kind of absorbent wadding. Well, with the butane lighters, you've got a valve that has seals, and those seals are rubber and break down over time. You've just got your fuel being suspended in there with the cotton, rayon, whatever the wadding is. Your wick, which is going to carry those vapors up, and then the heat or the spark. So very basic system with a Petrol lighter, where with butane lighters, with the burners, with the piezo ignition that most of them have, it's just a lot more intricacies, a lot more things that can go wrong. You know, you can sometimes hear gas coming out, and you can see the spark, and yet you don't get a flame. And it's just not as simple as a process as, you know, sparking fumes that are being carried up this wick. It's cool. I paid a little bit too much for it as far as selling it, because these are, believe it or not, this is probably the most common Cygnus on eBay. There are probably more of this exact lighter with this exact advertisement on it than there is any others. And I've had plenty of others with pretty cool and uncommon advertisements, but this one I wanted to own one, so I paid about $30 for this one, and to be honest, they go for about 50, so this one's probably going to stay in my collection. So fun to pull it out, fuel it up, which we did a couple of weeks ago, and here it's still got fuel in it. I don't know, maybe you guys remember, we didn't have a live stream last week, so it's been at least 2 weeks. Hello, Mark Burris, glad to have you with us. I think you were with us the last time too. What do you guys think of the Zoro Cygnus lighter? Maybe it'll run out of fuel right here on the live stream today, exactly 3 weeks later. I don't know, we'll see. No, sir. The fuel screw is completely different. That's one of the things that I'm really happy about them making the copy of this lighter, is that it is marked so clearly otherwise than the originals. There's no confusion there. But you've got a big knurled knob that is bigger than the original. And not only that, but I believe that the threads are smaller. Maybe not by a great deal, but just a tad bit smaller than what the original. So no, it will not work. I am sort of curious, and I hadn't pulled them out to look at them, so maybe we'll do that right now. Give you a little preview of a video that might be made at some time. Oh well, no, I can't on that one. I haven't compared the thumb roller flint tension mechanism or the flint spring carriage. I haven't tried to change those out, so at one point we may do that. It's another thing I've said for a long time, that I felt like the vintage Penguin Cygnus aluminum block roller Petrol lighters were impervious to vapor lock, and obviously this one wouldn't still be suffering from vapor lock 3 weeks later, but I don't think this lighter has failed to ignite any time that I've struck it. That's kind of crazy. At this point I've probably hit that roller a couple hundred times, and with it also being a semi-automatic lighter, not fully automatic, but semi-automatic, that's worth taking into consideration too, because there's a lot more going on with that snuffer going up and the lighter igniting all at the same time, and for you to keep getting that same ignition every time. Yeah, I love it. Mark says this is super. I'm assuming you're talking about just what I was talking about the roller gases. I'm certainly no expert on butane lighters, but Petrol lighters are a pretty simple thing. That's one reason why I make the videos that I do, is because I feel like most people, and I really mean that, if you've got enough dexterity to tie your shoelaces or figure out how to work your coffee pot, or if you can do those kind of tasks that most people do every day, then you can probably do most things that are needed on a Petrol lighter. And somebody who works on butane lighters might tell you the same thing about them. Now, Mark, I know we've talked a lot about I don't remember, is it the Exotac and the Titan? And you've talked about how they seal. This thing is literally the only weak spot. If you've seen the video, I think it was one we published Saturday, then you saw there's even an O-ring here. So what looked like it might be a weak spot, they've covered by putting the O-ring there. They've probably shouldn't be pulling this out. Might lose a little bit of fuel from me keeping this off a little bit today, but you've got the seal here, the seal there. There's a rubber O-ring going around the base to keep that sealed. The only other place where it would be open is at the snuffer, and while it doesn't have a rubber seal on around the wick, it does have a spring-loaded snuffer. So you have about as good a seal as you can have without having a rubber seal. And it really does appear, and maybe with the way that really thin, what do you call that? Like a snuffer, it's a cup. The snuffer cup is what you call it. That snuffer cup is the way it fits over that wick chimney. Maybe that, at being at sort of an angle like that, maybe that does actually help seal it off better than I would think. At 3 weeks of fuel, I'm not complaining. That's way better than you're ever going to get out of any Zippo Petrol insert. Even with an aftermarket gasket or something like that on it, you know, you might get a week or so. 10 days sounds like that would be a dream for a Zippo. And here we're working on 21 days with this one, and no problem at all. Really curious how this finish will wear also. Get over and check out the article that I published, a review article on this Friday afternoon, I think. Several pictures, YouTube videos embedded. There are affiliate links to where you can purchase this lighter from a listing on eBay. And when you click any of those links over on our website, we are an eBay partner and Amazon associate, so any of those affiliate links, your price will be the same whether you click through our link or go there yourself. But when you click through our link and make those qualifying purchases, then we earn a commission. But I think something else that, I can't remember if we've talked about it on the stream or not. I know that it has been discussed in the comments section below various videos, but the legitimacy of collecting these such lighters. I don't have any problem at all putting it in my pocket and using it, putting it in my EDC rotation. Basically, that's the way I see the vast majority of the lighters that are in my collection. There's a few that are sentimental, the ones that have been gifted to me, but even those are useful. I mean, none of them are lighters that I don't fuel up and use at a certain time. But to buy these like some people buy Zippos and put them on your wall and never use them, honestly, this lighter is nice enough that it'd be hard for me to argue with somebody who said that. I don't really understand it. I don't really understand people who buy Zippos and then never peel the sticker off and let that flint degrade inside of it. Then in their mind, they've got a perfect lighter that could very well be full of dust and debris and all kinds of contamination inside. But for those who do just collect, I would say that for your investment, for what comes after when you're done with it, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Zippos. I'm a fan, but you do see a lot of people who are very unhappy with the way Zippo has gone, with the quality. Hello, Viljami. Glad to have you with us today. The way that the quality has gone, you know, they'll have collectibles of the year that show up with the wrong inserts or the wrong finish or graphics that are crooked. Quality control seems like it's non-existent. And not only that, but for those who do use Zippo lighters, there's never been any improvements as to helping what is pretty much what I mean from my point of view as somebody who does use Petrol lighters and have for, I don't know, 9 years now or so. But everybody who first gets introduced to Petrol lighters, especially Zippos, are shocked that they fill that thing up and it only lasts a few days. And for somebody who is so proud of their design and how it works and that it's been in use for so long, it's incredible that they've never done anything to address the evaporation problem. You got third-party, you know, gaskets and things like that that you can put on that have. But Zoro has literally, they seem to have made that their goal, is how can they make each lighter that they put out as evaporation free as possible. So I think there's a lot to be admired. I did see some discussion on Reddit. Seems as though people feel like whoever's in charge of the Zoro lighter factory has an eye on YouTube videos and the comments under YouTube videos, and that they take those complaints as suggestions. And if somebody's complaining about a lighter being weak in that it leaks fuel in a certain area, then they're going to put a seal in that area to try to keep that from happening. They take those comments and use them as suggestions for improvements to the designs of various lighters. So my only suggestion for that, and I got I'm trying to, it may have been Alexei Nemov, comments on videos sometimes. Let me know if you're out there, Alexei or Alex or whatever your name is. I can't remember exactly. But we were talking about Chinese-made lighters, and I think it was before I even got this one. But he said, you Americans are so afraid, and it's not that we're afraid. You can go read other articles that I've written. I'm not afraid. It doesn't bother me that, you know, there are Asian buyers buying up lighters from America, all that kind of stuff. It's never bothered me like it does bother some people. And it doesn't bother me really. I mean, when you see the quality of this Zoro lighter, which, as I mentioned earlier, apparently is being manufactured in Hong Kong, according to our buddy Friedrich Deal, and I did find confirmation of that elsewhere on the internet as well, that the Ronson Hong Kong factory, when Hong Kong was and that's something it seemed to me like when it happened, when I guess the UK gave up whatever control they had of Hong Kong, I didn't think it was going straight back to China. I thought it was supposed to be like an independent country. Maybe not. But anyway, apparently the factory was the wording, what our buddy Friedrich has said and what I've read elsewhere on the internet as well, is that it was gifted to the Chinese or whoever was taking control. I could see where also it might have also just been abandoned, just wasn't worth taking everything. But anyway, that they're still, that's where these lighters are being produced. And I lost my train of thought. I don't remember exactly what it was I was talking about. So I'm going to check the stream here again. That is what we were talking about right before you hopped on, Mark. Or no, you asked me that just a second ago, didn't you, oh, Henningsen? Not sure if those are interchangeable or not. I'm also not sure why, but my chat over here on where I am monitoring this was not updating. Okay, so it says, yeah, definitely better than 3 or 4 days of fuel retention, Mark. Yeah, I filled this up, I don't know, it was either late that morning or early afternoon on the 23rd. I mean on the 3rd, 3 weeks ago. Yeah, we'll see what it does once it gets hot. It's been pretty nice around here. We've had some 80 degrees, but nothing you would call hot yet. Yeah, I really like it, Major Wynn. Like I said, I am curious to see. According to the listings you see on AliExpress and DHgate, they refer to the finish as resin craft technology. So it looks nice. It feels sturdy. But we'll just see after, rolling it, my thumb against it to hit the roller or to actuate the flint thumb roller or whatever, wherever it gets touched and worn at, it'll be interesting to see how well it holds up. But I'm going to try as I might not to not to ding it with anything metal. Whatever wear happens, I'm going to try to make that just be hand wear. Or, from setting it down. But even then, I'm trying to set it down on soft surfaces, not the granite surface over here. Olarp says his lighter of the day is a Rama Spin. Ronson, yeah. Love the Rama Spin. I'm trying to remember, is the Rama Spin, is that marketed as an actual Ronson or was that Art Metal Works? I've always been kind of confused about what the actual difference was there. Was Art Metal Works the previous company, the parent company? I think maybe it was the previous and parent company. But it does seem like one of those models was just marketed under one or the other. Just one marketed under one and not the other. Mark says, why is this is so strange the way this is. My chat is rendering over here on this other iPad today. Okay, Mark says, actually, if there's anything to fear, it's the fact that Zippo, regardless of input, has refused to correct the evaporation problem, and yet Zippo lighter fluid is $1 an ounce. It's just silly. Yeah. It says RAM lighters. Okay, interesting. That you reminded me there, Mark, also, when you say if there's anything to fear. That's what I would say about that. And man, I would love it if I had the space and the room and a lathe and mills and all the machinery that you would need to, drills and taps and dies, and to design and fashion American-made lighters. That would be awesome. At the current time, I don't even have a garage to walk out in to do that sort of thing. But if anybody's upset about them building these lighters in Hong Kong and selling them out of China, which appears to be what's happening, they're being sold pretty affordably. They're not being passed off as counterfeit. They're clearly marked. They are making improvements on original designs. They're putting out a quality product, and as far as I know, they're not infringing on anybody's patents or anything like that. Then I don't have an issue with it. And not only that, but I think if Americans are mad about it, then some Americans should start doing the same thing. I think that the use of Petrol lighters, as opposed to the cheap plastic butane piezo crap that is so prevalent in today's culture, and especially the use of Petrol lighters that are so efficient with the petrol fluid that you pour in them, as these Zoros are, I think that these lighters could make a legitimate claim to people that this is what you should be using rather than all that cheap plastic crap. If you can use a refillable Petrol lighter or even a refillable butane lighter, either one, refillable is better than disposable. And especially when it is, I mean, this is a piece of craftsmanship. It's a nice little machine. A nice little fire-making machine that, honestly, it's just as heirloom and collector quality as any other lighter that you've ever encountered that is not made out of, sterling silver or 24 or 18 or 10 karat gold, whatever it might be. It's a nice lighter for a really affordable price. And so I do think one thing to answer, or just to speak to Alexei Nemov's comment, though, is I'm not afraid. I don't think any other Americans are afraid. I do think that there are people that don't want to do business with, say, AliExpress or DHgate. For one thing, because the ship times are much longer than it typically is. Definitely much longer than domestic shipping. And not only that, but I think that there are people who don't trust their data on certain online markets. If they don't trust the government that they think might be controlling that market, like AliExpress or DHgate. Like I said, I haven't ordered from either one of those. I had an account with DHgate at one point. I browsed it all the time. I never ordered anything. I have browsed AliExpress. I know people who have ordered things. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I mine it sometime. I just know that I've heard that sentiment. I know that that is something that is, there are definitely people who don't want to order off of those online markets. But it is an excellent lighter. Very well machined, very well designed. Got the base plate coming off. That's a really nice improvement. We'll see about the coil spring, which is present in this Zoro copy, where the old style vintage Cygnus, I don't have one of those automats out here with me, but the automat version of it had a little short, like, flint spring with a tip on it that fit under the snuffer to force it up. Where with this one, it is, like I said, a coil spring, which I don't know. I don't know enough about springs. It could be that that coil spring is an improvement over the lift and tension that was provided by that other spring. This could definitely be more stable than the other spring, I think. So we'll see. But yeah, Olarp, the Rama spins are some of my favorites. I've only had one or two of them, but it's always been an intriguing lighter to me. The very first one I had was a brown tortoise finish, but it had some graffiti initials carved into it. You know, you always hope of finding one like this. Something that's brand new mint condition, really nice, and that wasn't that lighter. And that's the way it is with a lot of the lighters that make it into my possession. I end up with a lot of castaways, ones that aren't necessarily the most aesthetically appealing. Lost a finish, lost their leather, things like that. So it is nice to have, even though it was made in Hong Kong, sold on AliExpress. I believe that's where Friedrich bought it from. And it's not the original where this mechanism was made famous, but it's still really cool for such an affordable price to be able to hold such a nice lighter. If you had this finish on a vintage Penguin Cygnus lighter, and I've got some Cygnuses with some really nice finishes, but not with sealed painted finishes, or what at least appears to be a sealed painted finish. I don't know. Does anybody have any insight into what they might be calling resin craft technology? I'm guessing they're speaking of when they say resin, they're talking about lacquer. But I don't know the process here, if this is some kind of paint below that, or if the color is in the seal, color is in the resin or the lacquer. Now, Olarp, when you say, are you talking about the Rama spin? Looks like something Captain Kirk would use. Yeah, you're kind of right. It really does. It's got that. Oh, what do they? Oh, I can't think of the term now. It's not machine age, but it's got that sort of like how the fenders in the 50s and late 50s, early 60s all flared out so big. What? That's a lot older. When was the Rama spin? Was that the 30s or 40s? Mark says his Zoro 915S could be used as a doorstop. You're not going to break the hinge. Machining is excellent. Holds fluid well over a month. It doesn't clink like our Zippo. Okay, so what does it sound like, Mark? It's not a 1947, Olarp says, for the Rama spin. What is the sound? And the 915, is that like the biggest armor or the thickest armor that Zoro sells? What model is that? How does that compare to a Zippo? If we've got any other newcomers to the chat, let us know what's going on. Having some problem here monitoring this as I'd like, because the chat's not updating as it typically does. But let us know who's here, where you're from, what brought you here, what is your connection to the vintage petrol lighter hobby, or cigarette lighters in general. We had Major Win here with us, who's talking about finding a bunch of Dunhill roller gases and having sold them on eBay. Fueled this one up. Actually, that may have been the same day, maybe earlier in the day, the same day that we fueled this one up, which is rather interesting to me because this didn't even hold twice the amount of fuel as a normal pocket lighter. And here we would have it still holding fuel 3 weeks later. That's pretty incredible. Try for that not to fall over at some point here during the stream. Okay, so it's so heavy that it just kind of muffles it. Haven't heard from our buddy Natha up in Tulsa in a while, or Azriel in Indonesia, or Sean in the UK. Did get a message from Sean under video here a few weeks ago. Seen Professor's Garage around on Instagram and YouTube. And of course, there's all kinds of lighter content over on TikTok. And Instagram, you got Larry Lighter. Got all kinds of stuff too over in the Facebook groups. Larry Lighter and Peter Maloof, Tom O'Kee, Carl McMullen. A lot of really cool lighters being shown off. And of course, Eastwa Doom Flam. He is, I believe, on all those: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And there are various others that are on most or all of your typical social media outlets where people show off this kind of stuff. I think YouTube is really the best place for it. I think YouTube is an awesome community to gather around these sort of hobbies or interests. You guys may be getting tired of looking at that lighter, but I'm really intrigued by the finish. And I really want to show how nice it is, but also if something happens that that seal gets broke, or there's scratches, scuffs, a dent, whatever it might be, I want to see it. I want to know when it happens. And I'll have to get those others back out, and we'll just see if that interchanges. See the differences. Still need to disassemble. I've got about 3 automatic, vintage automatic Cygnuses. One of them operates pretty smoothly. A couple of the others need a little bit of work, a little bit of help. But this one, you can see just how, and there's no slack there. When you press it, it's coming up. When you shut it, it's held down. Talked about in the article how first you kind of want to press and then as you use it, you realize you can do both at the same time. Really is one motion to light it. Would be considered semi-automatic because even though it's one motion to light it, you still have to close the snuffer to extinguish the flame. Yeah, I love it. Got no complaints. So the Zoro 915. I may have to look into some of these others. Hello, Coffee Junkie. Glad to have you with us. Well, still this morning. Depending on where all of you are coming from, it may be afternoon for some of you. Got some things going on with family that I'm going to take off and go deal with here in a little bit, but I had set up to record a couple videos that I needed to record this morning, and always want to do the live stream on Monday morning. Weren't able to do one last week, so just hopping on, seeing what everybody's up to, seeing what anybody wants to talk to about Petrol lighters in general, vintage or even newly manufactured. And I'm really curious to see what you guys think. Mark, you own at least one Zoro. Olarp, you own plenty of old original lighters. What do you guys think of this? Is this one, do you guys think that the Zoros are worthy of collection? If somebody told you that they had a collection of every lighter that Zoro had made, you think that would be a legitimate pursuit? Or are they better off collecting old lighters? One of these days, these lighters will be old. So, just something to consider. Now, one thing also to consider is that one of these days, this lighter here will never be original. It will always have been inspired by the Penguin Cygnus lighter. So that's something to consider as well. Biljami asks if I can show you guys a park lighter. Give me just a moment, Biljami. Let me go see what I can find. I'm sure I can find a park. Pull out this container that's got all the lighters in my personal collection, and this is a lighter that I need to make another video or two with it, but I'm probably going to sell this one also if anybody's interested. There is a guy, and I don't know if he's still watching or if he's still even around in the hobby. It's been a year or more ago. Dude named Dominic Benetti, I think. His name was Dominic for sure. I told him I would let him know if I got ready to sell this, so I'll definitely hit him up, and I think it was Messenger that we had discussed. But this is a park lighter. Has been used, it's been lit up a few times in videos. Looks like there is a little bit of soot there. But this is your typical from the 1960s, the Murfreesboro era of Park Industries. You will find some brass cases, but mostly aluminum cases and inserts. Solid foam fuel cells, and actually that flint spring screw in this one has broke off. It's a plastic screw. So it looks like I'd have to deal with that before I sold this lighter anyway. But yeah, this is a Park lighter. That's your typical 1960s Park Industries. Yeah, it's I would call that, well, it's a leaf spring. But this is sort of a brute force sort of system. And it doesn't seem to be too bad most of the time. Seems to fare well over time. But I have encountered lighters over the years that it looked like their hinge had perhaps been abused because of the pressure that was being applied there. So maybe not as maybe a design that doesn't have the endurance that the Zippo hinge does, just because, like I said, it's sort of a brute force there. Do you have Park lighters, Bill Jami? What is your interest specifically in the Park? I bought this lighter because it gives me the opportunity. I'm getting a 20% warning there, just to give you guys a warning. Not going to take off anytime soon, but once we get down to that 10%, I'll let you know. But this lighter says, doctors agree, moonshine kills. So a little bit of government propaganda, which I would agree with. I don't think that moonshine or alcohol is good for anybody. But then a Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms badge on the backside, which some viewers have criticized me for. Listen, I'm not pro-government or anything like that. I just bought the lighter because it gave me the opportunity to talk about alcoholism. That was I love this graphic on the lighter. Now, I'll say this as well. I'm also not anti-government. I think I'm a pretty logical, respectful, voting, tax-paying American citizen who has things in the proper balance, and realize that just because you have something like this into your possession doesn't mean that you're full bore on the side of the ATF in everything. I realize there have been some hinky things. What happened in Waco was definitely shouldn't have happened the way it did. Ruby Ridge and all that kind of stuff. But again, I'm not some kind of wacko either that's afraid to hold a lighter just because it has that badge on it. Not my camera. I think, yeah, I've got some other Parks in here. I've got a lot of Parks in my personal collection, Bill Jami. Here's another one. This one I bought, and I'll go ahead, one of those family things that's on my mind today is one of my cousins, and I bought this lighter because of her dad. Well, actually, no, this one wasn't because of her dad. This one was because of my dad. This one was one that my dad, actually my buddy AJ, had some shirts made up after my dad passed, because my dad getting drunk one night. He was actually looking for schnapps, but he forgot the word, and he kept saying, "Who drank all the Smirnoff?" So I bought that lighter for my dad. That's a Park. But my cousin that I was talking about that is on my heart today, I bought this lighter because of her dad, who was very close to me. And when I would go buy him groceries or whatever else he needed, take him out there for the week, run his errands for him. A lot of times he would need a bottle of scotch, 100 pipers, and he would take that 100 pipers scotch. He would take a drink out of a can of Coke, just sip out of that can, and they would can with 100 pipers, put his thumb on it and tip it upside down to kind of mix it around in there. And that was the alcohol he had for the day. One of my problems with alcohol is I could never keep it to that much. One drink a day, and really even calling that a drink was a little bit of a stretch. He'd make that half gallon of scotch last him several months. But anyway, that's another park. Now this case is, looks like the case and the lid are brass, chrome plated brass, but you do have an aluminum insert. The same with this, I believe. Aluminum insert, although the windscreen, well, it may be aluminum too, just with a little bit different finish. But this case is also chrome plated brass. And I don't really know, it says Park Lighter made in USA, so I'm not sure if that was a Murfreesboro lighter. It's a Murfreesboro insert. So I think they probably did make the chrome plated brass cases in Murfreesboro as well. They definitely did in Springfield, Illinois. But you find much, much more of the aluminum construction cases once you get into that Murfreesboro era. Where are you located, Bill Jami? He says he doesn't have any park lighters, but would like to have one. Coffee Junkie says, I have a couple park lighters in my collection. What are the park lighters you have, Coffee Junkie? And what do you think of them? Do you like them? Do you use them? Oh, okay, so Bill Jami says he is in Finland. So, yeah, I can see that. Park are really common to the south of the United States, or even the Midwest, as they were manufactured first in Springfield, Illinois, and then later in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. So very common in the U.S. It's about as common for me to find park lighters as it is Zippo lighters. But I can see where in Finland might be a whole different story. See if I got any other parks. Yeah, one other park here in my personal collection. So what is that? Is that 3 or 4 that I pulled out here? Here's another one. Another Murfreesboro park. This one with, I believe, a dual material. Got anodized aluminum case and a chrome plated brass lid. So the lid is much heavier gauge metal, much more weight to it than the aluminum case. The insert, which was probably had a solid foam fuel cell, which has been replaced with either cotton balls or organic cotton. Definitely some corrosion and such to the insert, but it is not marked at all. But that is another park. So yeah, several parks here in my personal collection. Okay, yeah, I've got a few like that. I've got one that I need to list. It's not a IBEW, it's oh man, I'm drawing a blank. Fraternal Order of the Eagle, is that it? FOE, something like that. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. My first encounter with a park was a Park Slim whiskey advertiser. Checker Scotch. And you can go back and look. I wrote an article about it back in 2017, I think. And it's clear in my, I was completely ignorant of park lighters at that time. I knew a little bit about Zippo, but not much. But you can tell, I definitely thought it was a cheaper lighter because, for one, the plastic flint spring screws, it's, you know, I get it. It's not under a bunch of pressure, but plastic over time is just going to break. It's just not, especially for a lighter that, legitimately was guaranteed for lifetime, just like Zippos were. You imagine how many of those they were just shipping back out because that plastic screw was breaking? And then again, it's certainly not held up well for vintage users. And even the metal screws they use oxidize worse than any Zippo screw I'd ever seen. Most Zippo screws are brass. Flint spring screws anyway. So yeah, I get it. They do seem a little cheaper, and they probably are in certain. That's kind of what I'm saying with the blunt force sort of spring there. You know, it tips over real nice. It opens up real nice, but over time, what kind of damage is being caused to the constituent parts here? Yes, very light, and that's because of the aluminum. So that's going to vary depending, but like this one is chrome plated brass. It's actually got a paint or etch and paint type graphic, and then the emblem on the back, chrome plated brass. But you know, I've seen aluminum lighters. If they're aluminum, then they're probably, with the parks, they're probably more likely to have anodized graphics rather than painted graphics. But I have seen plenty of anodized park cases that had emblems or logos or these sort of appliques attached to them. And again, I've said a few things. You've said, Coffee Junkie, a couple things that people could construe to be negative, and I've certainly said plenty of those things here today as well. But it's just honest. I'm just trying to be honest. But the truth is, I love these lighters. I think they're very worthy of collection. I think that a lot of times they are underpriced. They're great value. You can get into park lighters of similar or even identical advertisements sometimes to Zippos for just a fraction of the price. So I think that more people should be paying attention to park lighters. I'm a huge fan, and I love buying them. I love it when I find them and people don't seem to be noticing. And me saying what I'm saying now is only going to make that harder on me to find them at good prices. But I'm telling you, these are good lighters. They're worthy of you having in your collection, whether you use them or not. They display every bit as nice as a Zippo. And the company itself has been around long, way longer than Zippo, since, I believe, 1914. And has made lift arm lighters, all kinds of other advertising products, but had been in the lighter game for a long, long time. Coffee Junkie says, I'm not trying to be negative. I do like them, especially from a collector standpoint. Yeah, no, I don't think you're trying to be negative, just like I'm not trying to be negative. I just want everybody out there to know, because like I say, when you start listing off, when you start listing off some negative attributes, then people can misunderstand. I'm always going to be honest with how all of these things work because, like I said, I want people to use them. I'm not, if somebody wants to buy a lighter from me and then let it sit on the shelf, that's fine. But if you buy it from me, it is in the condition so that you can just fill it up, put a flint in there. It should already have a flint in it. When you get it, you just fuel it up and it'll work. That's really important to me. So anyway, That's all. That's the only reason I make those qualifications, Coffee Junkie. Bill Jambi says, "What else do you have in your personal collection?" You know, all the Cygnus lighters. I don't really want to get all those back out, especially with my phone running down here. We're gonna have, yeah, there's my 10% warning. So we'll probably be cutting out here in the next 10-15 minutes. But I got these Cygnus lighters, Bill Jambi. They're really the coolest. I love searching for them. I love finding them. They're awesome. And then I've got gifts. You know, I've got few Cygnus lighters that were gifted to me, other lighters that were gifted to me over the years, other lighters that I bought because of connections to my father, my uncle, like I said earlier, or other loved ones. Coffee Junkie says, yeah, he's used the park lighters. They're solid. Hello, Hibbs. Glad to have you with us. Hibbs says, recently got a vintage Ronson Standard cleaned up and in working condition thanks to your videos. I love this little lighter. Sweet. Glad to hear that. That is exactly why we publish the repair videos. I was talking about that earlier. I really do feel like most of these repairs or whatever is needed to get an old lighter back up and running, whether it be drilling out a flint tube, replacing a wick, whatever it might be, most people are capable of accomplishing it. It's just one of those simple tasks that has kind of fallen by the wayside, like shining your shoes or manicuring your mustache, or I don't know, things that people do that they just don't do anymore. Coffee Junkie says most of his lighter collection is vintage flat advertising lighters. I love flat ad lighters. Yeah, some of the graphics on the flat ad lighters are the best. I appreciate all of you joining us today. Bill Jambi and Coffee Junkie, I believe you guys both were with us the first time a few weeks ago. Glad to have both of you with us again. Had some old friends, some new friends. I have, before we got on the live stream this morning, recorded a couple of videos, so we may have one of those during the week this week, another one on Saturday, we'll just see. Definitely should have a short published each weekday at noon. Get over to the website, check out the new article about the Zoro Z666, or just 666, or as I prefer to call it, the Zoro Cygnus, the newly manufactured Zoro branded copy or replica of the vintage Penguin Cygnus roller Petrol lighter, which was also an aluminum block lighter, and this newly manufactured lighter is not an aluminum block lighter. It is manufactured out of zinc alloy. A little bit bigger lighter, but with the mechanisms definitely familiar and reminiscent of the Penguin Cygnus. Specifically the Automat Penguin Cygnus. So we're going to have to jump off here pretty quick. I don't want the battery to die on me. It seems like it takes longer for the stream to upload when it ends that way. So if you got anything that you want to discuss that we've talked about here today, continue the conversation, we can do that over on the DependableFlame.com Facebook group. You can post pictures over there. Been a lot of content posted over there here lately, a lot of traffic, a lot of stuff, as we mentioned earlier, from Larry Leiter, Peter Maloof, Old Arp Enningson, who else? Jonathan Bryce DeGamo. Sure I'm leaving somebody out, and I apologize for that, but we'll see you guys all over there in the Facebook groups and at dependableflame.com. And of course, also, we'll meet you here for a live stream again next Monday morning, hopefully. Hopefully each Monday morning. Until next time.